Thank you for tuning in to this live broadcast. My name is Tim, and I am the executive producer at One Minute Apologist. Here at One Minute Apologist, we want to give you credible answers to curious questions. How do we do that? Well, sometimes it's through a live session where Bobby is teaching verse by verse through a book of the Bible. Or it might be by exposing you to other apologists. We want to encourage you to explore more of our content and theirs on your journey. During our live streams, we often take questions. We try to prioritize the questions that are relevant to today's topic. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's content and would like to support this channel, please visit our Patreon page. The stream will be starting soon. Thank you again for joining us. Well, why do we need to give a defense of the faith? Why does apologetics even matter to anybody? So today on this live episode, Bobby and I are going to go through 5 reasons that apologetics is really important, and we're going to do it all around the context of the idea of a resource that we just released through One Minute Apologist, our apologetics crash course. So in order to kind of build the need for some of that, in order to just elucidate why we even need to think about apologetics, why anyone should be doing apologetics, we're going to go through these 5 reasons that this resource is really awesome and that everybody that's watching needs this resource and needs to be diving into apologetics. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Bobby in here. Bobby, welcome to our live stream here. So I'm excited for this. I don't know if you're excited for this.
I am excited, Tim. Yeah, do you want to kind of have that mutual excited moment together?
Yeah. I think we should have that mutual excited moment.
Well, let's have it, man. Yeah, I'm excited. Give me a hug, dude.
That's my excited face. Like, yeah,
virtual snuggling, dude.
Right. So as we're going through this, as always, we would love to know where you're watching from. If you're checking this out at any point right here tonight on the live stream, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. If you're watching this sometime in the future, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. And as always, if there are things that we miss within these 5 things, we would love to know as well. So you can go ahead and leave that as a comment. So with that, let's go ahead and just jump right into these 5 things. The first one is the Bible commands us to be able to defend our faith. Bobby, that's a big charge. How do we justify that? How do we support that the Bible commands us to do apologetics in that sense, to be able to defend our faith?
Yeah, I mean, like, just think about how much you see in the scripture as it relates to giving a defense for the Christian faith. It's replete with apologetics. I mean, even in the Old Testament, I mean, the nation of Israel was taken into captivity by the Assyrians in 722 BC. And they were taken into captivity in 586 BC by Nebuchadnezzar. And so we understand that they were taken into captivity because they were adopting the ways of the culture around them. God never warmed up to a pluralistic approach. God wanted his people to be distinctly different in the way that they lived their lives, in the way that they carried themselves. But the people of God have always had this temptation to try to be like the culture that they live in, right? We know that in the book of Judges, everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Then we know that they wanted a king so that they could be like all the other people. And everybody doing what was right in their own eyes in the book of Judges and them wanting a king like everybody else eventually would lead to their own demise, going into captivity, causing problems for them. Then you come into the New Testament, Jesus is constantly doing apologetics as he wards off the false teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And then you even think about as it relates to John the Baptist, who wanted some assurance. Is Jesus really the Messiah? And he says, go tell John that the blind see, the deaf hear, that the lame walk. And what was he doing? He was basically saying that the things that the Old Testament said that the Messiah would do, he's doing. That the Old Testament is being fulfilled. And so he was being an evidentialist as an apologist right there, saying, here's the evidence. Then you think about Paul in Acts chapter 17 on Mars Hill, and he's dealing with the different ideas, right, of Athens and their false beliefs and their philosophies. Or you think about the book of Galatians and the Judaizers. Or you think about with the letters to the 7 churches and the false teaching of the Nicolaitans. Or you think about 1 Peter 3:15, and always be ready to give a defense, an apologia to anybody who asks. So somebody that says that apologetics isn't important or isn't a part of the Bible is just, frankly, they're not reading the Bible. We have been given a truth. We're to dispense this truth, the gospel, to the world that we live in. And this isn't going to sit well. People are going to ask us questions. They're going to struggle with it. And we are going to have to be ready to give a defense. We're going to have to be able to take every thought captive. We're going to have to know how to discern. We're going to have to know how to test the spirits, as the Bible talks about in 1 John. And all of this discernment related ministry and apologetic and giving a defense and knowing why it is that we believe what we believe. I mean, even Jesus in John 14:6, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. Or in Acts chapter 4 and verse 12, there's no other name given under heaven whereby men must be saved, but at the name of Jesus. So basically, these are exclusivistic claims, and these claims don't fit well in a pluralistic culture. And so we take these claims out there, but we're going to get refutations that are going to come our way. How are we going to do that? Well, sadly, what the church often does is they become cultural adoptionists, and they adopt the culture instead of standing fast to what the truth has to say. And this course can help with that.
And okay, so let's just be honest. If you're watching this, I want you to let us know if you have ever run into opposition to just the idea of apologetics in your church or in your congregation. Have you ever brought up to your pastor or even just a Christian friend, maybe around a campfire or in a conversation about, man, I've been watching this 1 Minute Apologist on YouTube. It's great. And they're like, man, we don't need to do we don't do that. We don't need to argue. We don't need to give a defense.
Right.
We have this. We don't need to do that. So I want everyone to just post whether or not you've ever experienced that, because I think we can maybe find some solidarity, I guess, if you will, some camaraderie with those that have also experienced that. So you've given a great series of reasons that the Bible commands us to be able to do apologetics, and really the discussion should be over at that point. We should just say the Bible lays out pretty clear reasons why we should be doing apologetics, but we got 4 more. So let's keep going. Let's just kind of maybe pile on at this point. So the first one is the Bible commands it, and the second one is that people have genuinely important questions, and sometimes they wrestle with doubt. So expand on this a bit more for us.
Yeah, so I mean, we should be sympathetic to the fact that people do have questions and they have doubts, right? I mean, in the book of Jude, it says, be merciful to those who doubt. How often is that our posture? One, where we're merciful to those who doubt. So we are to be merciful to those who doubt. Even questions. Think about the disciples and how many of them had questions for Jesus. They'd come back to Jesus after he finished teaching. Sometimes Jesus would purposely teach just a little bit over the top of their heads, fly a little high to see who the hungry ones were, right? And those who are really hungry come back and say, Jesus, you said this, help me to understand. He'd say, to you, the kingdom of heaven has been given, right? So Jesus was always answering questions. He was always clarifying truth. And I think that should be the posture that we take, that we welcome questions, and we even welcome people who struggle with doubt and skepticism wherever they are on that map, because listen, we can be secure in our beliefs, but we'll be a lot more secure if we've done our homework, if we've done our studies. We can be prepared. Like, apologetics gives us great confidence. It helps us to get in the battle of ideas and to not be worried about somebody coming and eating our intellectual lunch. Like, you can feel good about Christianity. I mean, the evidence for the resurrection on a historical basis is phenomenal. The evidence that we can provide that the universe began to exist is phenomenal versus it just popping into being out of nowhere. So people do have questions. They have important questions. Questions like, well, if God is good, why is there so much suffering and evil in the world? Or what about those who've never heard about the gospel, that live in parts of the cultures, parts of the world like the 1040 window? Are they going to be saved? Why is it that I pray to God and I don't feel like he's answering my prayers? I mean, there's great answers to these perplexing questions. And so I just want people to know that if you've got questions or if you have doubts, this course can help you, but it can also equip you with some answers to some of the questions that are important that people are currently wrestling with. And we walk through some of those very difficult questions and provide plausible answers to them.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so we've hinted a couple times at this course, and maybe you've seen the advertisements for it. The link is right above Bobby's head on the screen. We're going to allow for some questions kind of at the end about the course. We're going to go through some more details about that. So this apologetics crash course, we're going to keep kind of building the need for why every single Christian, everyone that calls themselves a follower of Jesus, should be engaging in apologetics. And we believe that this course is a fantastic kind of introduction to that. And just really something that you can kind of latch onto. So we've gone through two reasons that all Christians should be doing apologetics. The first one was that the Bible commands it. The second one is that people have genuine questions and genuine doubts. Let's move on to the third one here. The third one is that believers have solid answers. And you kind of foreshadowed that just a little bit there at the end of your question, or the end of that last statement that you gave. But a lot of people might say, no, we really don't have solid answers. We just need to, classically, we just need to take it on blind faith. We just need to, do the leap of faith in the dark, and there really isn't evidence for the truth of Christianity. How do we respond to something like that?
Well, I think that there is evidence, and we can give lots of good historical answers that can help put people in a context where their eyes can be open and they can have an aha moment. So let's just take Genesis chapter 22 for one example of a solid way that we can answer a problematic passage. This is the story where Abraham's told to sacrifice his son, Isaac. Isaac obviously is the promised child. They've been waiting for 25 years for this child to be born. Now that he's born, fast forward to his teenage years, and here he's told to sacrifice the promise. And we sit there and we think, man, what's up with that? Like Larry King Live on CNN back in the day would ask Christian leaders that would come on his program. He would say, I just can't believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because God would ask Abraham to sacrifice his child Isaac. It just seems so barbaric. And so what happens is we turn in our Bibles on Sunday mornings as pastors and we say, let's look at Genesis 22, and we start talking about how, look at his great faith. He went to sacrifice his child, and then the congregation says, preach it, amen. And those who are on the outside, they're looking, they're going, these people are whacked out, man. What's their deal? This is a bizarre passage. And I think we're better off saying, I don't know if you have felt what I felt when you're reading Genesis 22, but isn't this a little bit odd that God's asking Abraham to sacrifice his child? Doesn't this sound a little bit like child sacrifice? Why would God do this? This is so problematic. And I can understand why Larry King had consternation at this particular passage of scripture. But what if we were able to say something like this? Larry, that's a great question. And it's a genuinely important question. And I can understand how the question could even metastasize into doubt. But let me give you a way to understand it by stepping into the ancient Near Eastern milieu and by understanding the context from which Abraham was called out of in Ur of the Chaldeans. He was surrounded by polytheistic cultures that believed in child sacrifice. And his mindset was one of which he believed that the greatest way to model one's faith was to offer their child up to God, because that's what he saw modeled. So now you fast forward to this moment where God asks him to sacrifice Isaac. We know according to the New Testament that he even believed, according to Hebrews, that God could raise him up. But here's the deal. Right when he was about to sacrifice Isaac, God intervenes and says, stop. Well, God met Abraham where he was at, under a mindset that would have thought child sacrifice is a great way to demonstrate faith. God, as an accommodating God, meets Abraham where he's at in order to bring Abraham to where he's at. And as if to say, God says, stop, don't do it. As if God was saying, I'm not like the other gods. I don't call for child sacrifice. So interestingly enough, the whole passage that looks like God's telling Abraham to go and do child sacrifice, it's actually a polemic where God steps into place, and it's really turning child sacrifice on its head. And if we can understand the wider context, we can understand the apologetic prowess that we can have at our fingertips in articulating the truth of this great passage of Scripture.
Right at the beginning of your book, Doubting Towards Faith, you give you tell a story of the CEO, the originator of Apple, Steve Jobs, and how when he was a young boy, he had been going to church, and he asks his, teacher, his Sunday school teacher, if you will, a question. In essence, it's about the problem of evil, a little bit of what you've been talking about here. But we think back to, number two, that people have genuine questions. But it was unfortunate that
Exactly.
Steve Jobs did not get the answer. And one of the things is that we feel like there are such solid answers to all of those questions that we have. And that's one of the reasons that 1 Minute Apologist actually exists. I mean, we have over 1,000 questions that people have asked and that we have come up with, and that Bobby or other experts, credible experts, have given answers to. And so we believe that there are solid answers to some of those. And again, Bobby just gave a great example of one of those. Well, somebody in the chat, Nick, said, should we come up with a new name for apologetics? Maybe apologetics has a PR problem.
Yeah, I know. And Nick, thank you for the question. I think about that sometimes. I do sense that the term hurts us. I think that people at times can shy away from getting in the apologetic game because they feel like, I don't like chess because it's too intellectual. And that's what apologetics can also, oftentimes feel like, is this chess game. How do I figure out how to give all the answers? And I think that apologetics has a head, heart, hands component. It's holistic. There are intellectual answers that we can give, of the head, and so then you'd start thinking about the cosmological or the ontological or the teleological or the moral argument. Some of these more philosophical in nature arguments can be a little bit more time consuming for us to learn and more challenging. But then we can give an apologetic of the heart, right? This is my book, The Fifth Gospel, where I wrote it after the quote by Gypsy Smith. There's 5 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and the Christian, but most people will never read the first 4. In other words, people are watching our life. They're watching the way that we live. Jesus in his high priestly prayer in John 17, right? He prayed that we might be one so that the world will know we are his disciples. So there is this heart aspect, right? Even 1 Peter 3, the context in verse 15, where we're told to give an apologia, a defense, an apologetic, that's really a life witness. When people see the way you live your life for God, how you do not give up in your heart for him while being persecuted, and people say, how do you have such hope? Well, be ready to give an answer, an apologia, a defense. And then there's this hand side of apologetics. So you got heads, and intellect side, heart, the relation side, hands. This is the service side, the social justice side. We're getting out. We're helping the widows. We're helping the poor. We're fighting to end racism. We're getting after those issues. And I think that if we can help people to understand that we all have an apologetic part to play, that it's not just about giving intellectual answers to people's difficult questions, but rather apologetic is not something that we need to only explain, but it's something that's to be demonstrated through the way that we live our life and the way that we love one another. And so I don't think getting rid of the term is the solution. It sounds like it would be the easiest thing to do, but I just don't think it's realistic that we're going to get rid of the term. And let's be honest. I don't think we should think it's too much to deal with the term. Think about this phrase, critical race theory. Well, if you're the founder of critical race theory, I mean, what a term is that? Like, how is that actually going to get popularized? How are people actually going to talk about critical race theory? Well, they are. They're talking about it like crazy. I mean, our president just called for the end of all governmental funding toward critical race theory.
Right.
People are getting informed. Well, guess what? Critical race theory is going to require some thinking to get your hands around it. So I'd say in the same way, while apologetics, it does have its obstacles, as I'm sure critical race theory, some people still don't really know what that means. They don't really get into it because of the phrase, but we see that it's possible to get so popularized that people are becoming aware of it. So too, that's the way it is with apologetics. So what do we got to do with the term? I would say we need to use it more. We need to explain it more. We need to model it more. We need pastors to quit shying away from it. We need them to equip their church on it. And we need pastors to realize that apologetics is not an option for them as pastors in equipping their flock for the work of ministry. I mean, if they're going to just say, go out and love the culture, well, the culture is going to beat them up with intellectual questions. And if we don't arm them with even greater intellectual answers, they are going to get frustrated in the evangelism and the endeavor to which they're called to missional living.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So Jeff just brought up this and said, "Man, I've experienced that pushback before from my pastors. I've had church staff members kind of roll their eyes when I'm telling them that I'm putting together a church conference." And really, Jeff, what we would say is maybe forward this video to them, because ultimately it's really about number 4, and so that people will hopefully place their faith in Jesus Christ. And so really that's the end goal. I mean, apologetics in a lot of senses is this partner to evangelism, where we're going out and we're sharing our faith, we're talking about what Jesus has done in our life, and inevitably some of those questions will be asked. Some of the, but how do you do this? Just like we talked about in number 2, and then you're able to, number 3, give those solid answers. So Bobby, talk a little bit more about that. Why is that so important for us to have these tools as we're doing evangelism?
I do think that that's the end goal, right? Like, we want people to be able to see Christ clearly. And so apologetics just removes one obstacle at a time so that people can get a clear, fresh look at who God is in the gospel. And so what we want is people to have their eyes open. Apologetics doesn't save anybody. Apologetics simply gets rid of the debris that is in the way, but it goes hand in glove with evangelism, right? I mean, when we're doing evangelism, so like, this is the thing, churches aren't going to deny doing evangelism. Most of them aren't, right? I mean, though we got new studies that are coming out showing that over half of the millennial generation actually believes that evangelism is morally wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that it is morally wrong? Well, I think that we have to constantly understand the vernacular of the culture that we live in. We have to think like missionaries like never before. Culture's changing fast. I mean, think about how much culture's changed just since we went on quarantine. If we don't stay up to date, if we're still trying to package the gospel with old methodologies, we are going to make it very hard for people to digest the gospel. Apologetics needs a rhetoric, a vernacular that is fresh, that is current, that is digestible, that people can understand. Paul says in Colossians 4, pray that God might open a door to me, that I might present the gospel, and that I might share it plainly as I ought to speak. And so we have to know how to speak in a way. It's kind of like if we're going to go out and catch fish. We're going to go fishing, and I say, Tim, let's go do some fishing. And I'm just using bait because I like the bait. I like the way it smells. It's the bait that I always use. My dad used to take me to a particular pond, and this is where we used it, this bait here. And now I'm going to go to this new pond, but I insist on using this bait. But then I drop it. Guess what? These fish don't smell that bait. They don't like that bait. They shun that bait. Well, does that mean that I'm just going to condemn the fish, that they're not interested in biting? Or do I change my methods by which I fish? Do I figure out what bait are they going to bite onto? And I think that true missional thinking is constantly trying out different ways to lure the fish in. And apologetics is just one lure. It's just one form of bait by which we can hopefully capture people to the tastiness, to the truthfulness of the Christian message.
Oh, man, I love all the analogies. The bait analogy, being sent off to war with an M16 and no boot camp, like you've mentioned before. I think all of those are extremely apropos. And so as people are continuing to have this conversation with other people in their church, they hopefully can use some of these tools. They can use these reasons that we've given them. And then also, ultimately, our hope is that you engage with One Minute Apologist as a ministry. You check out our videos, but then ultimately you invest in this resource. So we're going to just kind of move on to the fifth reason that we believe that you need apologetics in general and this resource, is because we really believe that it's awesome. And that's not just because we produced it, though we did, but we really feel like that it's timely in its essence and being delivered right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, apologetics is an awesome tool just in general. And I'm so thankful for my fellow apologists, for the wonderful work that they're doing in Christian apologetics. And my hat's off to everybody who is rolling up their sleeves and getting in the apologetic work. We have to figure out, how the church is going to be reputable in this culture, and how the church can make a difference. And even being reputable, we blow it, we sin, we make mistakes. Well, what do we do when we blow it, we sin, we make mistakes? Well, we own it, we apologize, we repent, we examine our heart, and we move on, and we forgive each other. I don't think the culture is expecting us to be perfect. It's just when we blow it, when we mess up, let's be authentic about that, and let's move on, and let's grow through it. And I just really want to encourage people to consider how apologetics can be helpful. For me, apologetics, I got into it through doing evangelism. I was literally freshly saved, and I was wanting to tell people about the Christ who saved me. And I was evangelizing, and people kept asking me questions, and I just did not know the answers. I knew that I believed in Jesus, and I could talk about what that meant and how exciting it was, but that could take me only so far. And so I do think that if people are genuinely sharing the gospel, engaged in evangelism, they're going to realize that they're going to need the tool of evangelism. It's kind of like the person who, you want to go surfing in the winter without a wetsuit. Great. You'll last about 5 minutes in the water. But if you want to really get good at surfing in the wintertime, you're going to need a wetsuit so you can stay in the water longer. Apologetics is like a wetsuit for the surfer. It allows us to stay in the game longer so that we can be better at the skill that we're really after, and that is doing evangelism.
No, that's awesome. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to run. We did a short little promo commercial. It's on our Facebook page. It's on our Instagram page if you've seen that. I'm just going to run that real quick, and then I might go through some of the nuts and bolts of the course and some of maybe the frequently asked questions that we get about the course. If you have a question about the course or just something that you want to ask Bobby here in this minute while we got him live, feel free to go ahead and do that. If you've taken the course, give us a comment. Let us know that you've taken it. Give us a thumbs up or ask some clarifying things. I'm going to go ahead and roll this commercial real quick.
Great.
Apologetics helps us to feel more equipped and confident in doing evangelism. Look, if I could take a few hours with you to help you to feel confident in sharing the gospel and defending the truth of Christianity, what would I want to say? If I could just distill what I would want to say to the local church on why it is that we can be confident in presenting Christianity, well, this is it. It's a crash course.
So that's just a little bit, kind of our quick commercial that we have going on. If you want to share that, it's on our Facebook page for you to check that out. One of the things that we've been kind of asked a number of times, this is a kind of go at your own pace course. So there's 8 different classes that we've recorded. We've put them up on the website, and you can just go at your own pace. There's some additional resources from One Minute Apologist that you can click on the bottom to be able to check those out. There's also a private Facebook group, so if you're on Facebook or you have a Facebook account and you want to jump on there and ask questions or share a story, you can do that as well. So it's really one of the main questions that we get is it's go at your own pace. The whole course, start to finish, is about 90 minutes. Again, it's 8 courses. They're somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. I think one of the course is 18 minutes. So if you got a couple minutes a day after you do your quiet time or just, kind of in the evening, it's totally doable for you to just listen to one a day and go through it, and then maybe spend a couple days or a couple afternoons and just watch some of the added resources. Somebody was asking me, they said, look, I work and I'm homeschooling right now, my kids, will I be able to do this? And I said, yes, I think you would be able to do this. If you can carve out 15 minutes a day, you can take part in this course. Bobby, is there anything else you want to add to some of those details there?
No, I just binged watched 2 seasons of Cobra Kai in, I think, 4 days. So that had 20 episodes, right? So I think I watched 10 I was watching 5 episodes a night. And so, Karate Kid fan when I was a kid. and Cobra Kai comes out. And so I'm like, well, I got to do it, man. Tim Stratton, our bro, and fellow apologist, I read this Facebook post where he was talking about Cobra Kai and he got all sentimental about it. And oh man, I got suckered into that thing and I watched 20 episodes in 4 days. So I would say, my goodness, you could binge. I mean, I tend to watch a movie every night before I go to bed or something like that. I love film. I love just thinking about it and what the message is. And I'm sitting there going, this crash course is shorter than a film. So yeah, you can get through it really quick.
Yeah. So CI said that he's currently taking the course and he loves it. Highly recommend it to everyone. So thanks, CI, for that. There was a question from Theological Theory, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure how to answer this question. It's about the course, so we'll ask it and see what it says. I'll go ahead and bring it up here on the screen. I'm not sure where it's going to show up here. Okay, so he says, will this course deal with the borderland between understanding and belief? It seems that even if people get some good answers to their philosophical questions, they won't necessarily be ready to believe.
I deal with that more in our evangelism course that's going to be coming out on the difference between understanding and belief. And there I deal with this acrostic with the word assess. And the final two S's, there's the seeing stage and the submitting stage. And I talk about how, you can see it, you can get what it's saying, but you're not ready to submit to it. And so I would say in the same way, somebody can understand what it is that we believe, but they haven't quite put their faith and trust in Jesus. And that's what our follow-up course on evangelism will definitely dig into and address at a portion of it. And that's going to be coming out soon as well. Perhaps Tim could talk about that.
Yeah, so I can't. I just finished editing class 5 of 7 today on our evangelism crash course, so hopefully that will be out within the next few weeks. Nobody likes to give an exact date, because if you miss it, then everyone's like, you said it was going to be out on this date. So I don't want to give an exact date until all the classes are finished and they're all published up online. But I'm sure when that class happens that we will be letting our community know on Facebook. And yeah, I think you're right, Bobby, that second class, the evangelism crash course, deals a little bit more with, kind of that tipping point in that class. Actually, I think that's the class that I edited today where you went through and did that assess across.
Yeah. And I would want to say to those, be praying for us at 1 Minute Apologist Ministry. I'm flying out this week with Heather to North Carolina. I can't wait to see Tim. We're going to spend some time in studio together, and we're going to be creating another crash course on mental health. And I've been contending that I believe that, mental health issues is an apologetic issue in this time. Many people in the church dismiss it, and we have to give a defense for why it is we need mental health ministries in the local church. I believe that post-COVID, we're going to see that we've got a mental health crisis on our hands, and we have to know how to deal with that. And that can be one way that we can really, love the world well, by understanding some of these issues. So my wife and I are going out to North Carolina. We're going to be producing this. It's going to be a tool for the local church. And I'm going to even be putting together a series of videos on the whole Black Lives Matters movement. And so hopefully stuff on critical race theory and several other questions. So we got a lot of content coming your way, as well as this evangelism course that Tim's talking about.
Yeah, no, it's going to be awesome. We're looking forward to that as well. So again, we're looking to continue to equip and resource and provide credible resources to all the different questions that people have. And one of the questions Carly asked, is there a certificate of completion for those who want to see it for additional credibility as I'm talking to them about apologetics? There isn't necessarily, but that's a good idea. I could produce something like that and, again, make it real nice and put your name on it. And when you hit 100% on the course thing, I could go ahead and shoot you an email with that, and you could print it off and frame it. Or if you're talking to a pastor and they say, well, what credentials do you have? You could say, I finished the Apologetics crash course through 1 Minute Apologist, and here's my certificate. That's awesome. I can go ahead and spend some time doing that. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea. And it could be that maybe we incentivize people, like, because we're going to be creating a lot of these crash courses over time where you'll really be able to get an apologetic education when all's said and done. So we're looking to put out a new crash course every quarter. So these things will really begin to add up. And so you can imagine in time having a crash course on ethics or on Bible study methods or on the different arguments for the existence of God, or on apparent contradictions in the Bible and how do you deal with these things, or the problem of evil. We're going to really be getting into some of these different courses. And so it could be that you have different level of certificates. So somebody who went through maybe 4 of the crash courses, they will get this type of a thing. So you can have different types of certificates that we use. I think that's a good idea, Tim.
Yeah. So, Bobby, I know that you wanted to talk about one thing that you and I were discussing ahead of time, is maybe some ways that people could use this just outside of sitting in front of their computer or sitting on their phone and watching it. What were some other suggestions that you have of ways that people could utilize this course for expanded reach, per se?
So I would say if you're a small groups leader in a church, and you have the opportunity and flexibility to choose a curriculum, think about doing the apologetics crash course. You could get the apologetics crash course, and then you can take 1 letter each week of the word defense, and it can be simple. You watch for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you formulate some questions around the particular topic, and that way you're discipling your small groups through this kind of material. So when all's said and done, that's one of the big things that we want people to be doing. We want local church pastors to know that 1 Minute Apologist is here to come alongside of you to create resources that you can use, that small group leaders can use, and it's plug and play. And that's why we're keeping it crash course. We're keeping it shorter. The evangelism crash course is going to be less than 2 hours. It's going to be 6, 7, 8 sessions. But it's the same thing. We don't want to take all of your small group time listening to me as a talking head. Rather, we just want to show up in your family room for about 15, 20 minutes. And we want to kind of set the discussion table by offering you something to think about. And then as a small group leader, you can just lead people in questions. And the questions are simple, right? I mean, better than we would know what questions to maybe specifically ask. Like, what did you like about this? Is there anything you need clarification on? How can we incorporate this more into our church? And so I would just say, small group leaders, this is for you. Take your small groups through it. Pastors, this is for you. Make your small group leaders aware of this tool. And I would also encourage you as pastors to use our 1 Minute Apologist videos at 1 Minute Apologist. And we have pastors and professors that do this all around the world. They might open up their service or they use them in their teaching illustrations. These videos are for you. We want you to know it. If you feel overwhelmed by the apologetic task before you, put a link up on your website. As it relates to evangelism and when it comes to apologetics, just put a link up to the 1 Minute Apologist and let them know that we've got over 1,000 videos. We will come alongside of you. It's there. It's free. It just go and get the link and put it up. And then we will introduce your congregation to some of the greatest thinkers in the world as it relates to apologetic issues and equipping them. So we just want you to know that we're here for you. We want to be a resource for you. We're passionate about getting apologetics in the local church. I am a churchman. I spent almost 15 years as a lead pastor of a church that I started. I love the local church. I also happen to love apologetics, and it bothers me that sadly they're in 2 separate worlds. Apologetics was never meant to be taken out of the local church context, and it's time that apologetics gets back in the context from which it was birthed, the local church.
No, that's great, and I everyone can sense and understand the passion that Bobby has as he explains that. That's not manufactured. That is real. That is what he talks about when he's not live. That's what we talk about in the car when we're traveling places or when we're sitting hanging out. That is Bobby's essence. So there's 2 quick things that I want to get to before we wrap up here. Will asked about an alumni network, and Will, the best way that we're facilitating that right now is the Facebook group. So as we continue to release courses, there will be Facebook groups that either all of those those people that are taking courses will have access to, and they can talk back and forth and help people out with that. Again, Bobby just mentioned if you're doing a study of some sort with a group of people and questions get raised, that Facebook group is a great place to ask those questions. Bobby answers questions on there. I'm answering questions on there. The other course takers are answering questions on there. We're planning on doing some specific live events for just the course takers to really nail down deeper on some of those things that are in the course that maybe we didn't address because it's only a crash course, but that other people are continuing to ask. So that's one great piece. The other one is Will asked, how much is the course? And currently it's $24.99. That's half price. It's going to go up at some point soon. Again, we haven't set a date on when it's going to go up, but I would err on the side of getting it sooner rather than later. And if you buy it now at $24.99, we're offering a $5 add-on of the doubt study. So we created a doubt study that goes along with Bobby's book, Doubting Towards Faith, but you can watch it on your own. There's reflection questions. There's there's a PDF download of the faith study. There's videos. There's 10 videos that go with that. So you can purchase that all right from the link that's at the bottom of the screen. And most people right now are doing the bundle. They're getting the $24.99 class, and then they're doing the Doubting Towards Faith study add-on to that. So that's a great question. I'm just going to look to see if there's any more questions. Who's your barber? Who's your...
My barber is me. I literally do my own hair. I've every once in a while I go and get a haircut. And my son's the same exact way. I've taught him. I used to cut his hair all the time. And back when I was in high school, I was the kid that I'd have all my friends over and I knew how to blend. So a lot of people with the clippers, they don't know how to blend. And so I made a lot of mistakes on my own back as a kid. But yeah, I'd literally, back when I was in high school, I'd have kids coming over for haircuts. I'd be doing the blending, and then I'd be putting on the head shield and bleaching their hair out and pulling their hair through. And I'm thinking, man, that's funny. So yeah, I'm actually my own barber. The question is, who's your barber, Tim?
I'll be honest. I go to the chain Great Clips right now, and one of the reasons
they're doing a good job, because I typically picture them doing a butcher job on us. Man.
Yeah, no, they're really good, and this is really interesting. But one of the things that I love about Great Clips is I always have fantastic conversations with the person that is cutting my hair. Yeah. I became actually pretty good friends with Tom, who was someone that consistently cut my hair, and he and I are Facebook friends, and we chat. He ended up moving, but we still connect whenever he comes back in the area. We hang out, and so made some really good relationships. I just talked to someone the other day in the chair. She was saying that her mom had cancer. She had just moved into the area. Just a great chance to kind of share Jesus and have a good conversation with her and just build that relationship. My hair takes a little bit longer now than it did when I just had the simple, just kind of cut it or whatever. So I end up having longer conversations, and I love it because I have someone different almost every time. It's cool.
Yeah, no, that's great, bro.
So hello. I'm Christy from South Carolina, and I've been a Christian most of my life. I agree what you have said about the church and never feeling equipped. Well, Christy, we really appreciate that. If I do another conference, Jeff asked, if I do another conference, will Bobby speak at it? Bobby, actually, you're on this side here. Bobby, would you speak at a conference if somebody contacted you?
Of course, yes. And I mean, here's the deal. We genuinely want to be the best resource we can be for you. And so we've got lots of ideas that we're trying to do. The truth is we're doing this ministry. The first over 1,000 videos were just given away for free. So, the local church where I was a part of funded this ministry for all those years. And so I'm very thankful that what we're able to give away is a tremendous amount. At the same token, we are a 501c3, and we have lots of dreams, lots of visions, and a lot that we want to do. But Tim is a part-time staff. I'm a part-time staff. We have to pay people to do the editing and different things that we're doing. And so it takes resources, it takes partnerships. And so we're asking if people would prayerfully consider jumping on our Patreon support team and helping us, because I feel like there's so much that we can give and create to help the local church. But we do need resources. And so if there's people that don't feel like, man, I don't have the ability to feel like I'm a trained apologist, but I definitely have been financially blessed, those are the people that would say, hey, well, maybe consider helping us so that we can get the message out there. We want to build a relationship with you as our audience. And so the great question of like, will there be an alumni? That's what we want. We want to do lives. We want to do special lives for just, our alumni. We want to build a relationship. And so we really are thinking about, how do we develop a huge discipleship community where you can all know each other? And so just to cast that kind of vision, one thing that because I was a pastor for so many years and trained in apologetics and philosophy and theology, I really want to take both of those things and put them together for the local church. And so that's something I feel really strongly at this stage of my life, is that the local church needs resources. The local church needs tools. And we feel like we want to come alongside and help and equip and coach and come out to churches. We're even willing to come out to churches and do seminars on how to get apologetics in the local church. I'm willing to work with your pastor, or if you're a pastor, with you. We'll do consulting. Tim and I are happy to come in and spend time with your staff, helping you to understand, how do you do apologetics from basically to the cradle to the grave in your church? How do you come up with a mission statement? How do you find somebody to own it? What's the strategy going to be? How do you know where to begin with apologetics? How do you incorporate apologetics into your preaching? There's a lot of things vision-wise that we can offer and we can give. And believe me, where I pastored, people would sometimes think that we are an apologetics church. And I would say, no, let me stop you there. We're not an apologetics church. That's way too myopic. We're a church that happens to value and be passionate about apologetics. We do apologetics, but that's not who we are, just an apologetics church. But I think we did a good job modeling it from the pulpit, having it in our Life University, doing it throughout our small groups, offering Sunday night seminars, bringing in different apologists. So there's lots of stuff that we can come alongside of you and help you to understand, how do you begin creating an appetite in your church context for apologetics? You don't want to wake up on a Sunday morning, if you're a pastor, and say, well, this morning I'm looking forward to talking to you about the categorical imperative by Immanuel Kant, and how important it is to understand deontology as a philosophical, moral, ethical approach to contextualizing truth in a culture that struggles to digest it. That's not going to fly well, right? You don't start there, but we can help you to understand how to do that.
No, I was following you. That's why I was like, man, that would be really funny, because I'd probably be like,
Right?
that's awesome. But so two quick, yeah. With that, Jeff, 1minuteapologist.com/invite. There's a little form there you can go ahead and fill out, and we would get back to you on that. We would love to be able to do that. Elma asked if our course is going to be translated into Canadian, and by Canadian, I think you mean French. We don't. You could watch it and select the French subtitles if you needed to, but it is in English. Maybe that's something that we could think about in the future. And real quick, before we wrap up, I just want to kind of give just kind of a look of what it looks like. So this is the course. You can see on the side there that there's the introduction, and then Bobby goes through the acrostic of the word defense and what each one of those means, and that's on the oneminuteapologist.acc. We actually have a layout of what all that is, and then there's the doubt study right there at the bottom, and you can see that there's some added resources there that you can check out. Each course has some extra resources that you can dive into. Some of them are longer live streams. Some of them are just shorter videos that are on our YouTube channel that you can check out. And so just wanted to make sure that everyone got a chance to see what that looks like if you log in and whatnot. If anybody has any issues, you can go ahead and shoot me an email, info@oneminuteapologist.com, and I'll get worked out. I know some people were just having some issues. I they lost the link or whatever, that's totally fine. Feel free to shoot me an email. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you join the Facebook group and you have issues, you can leave a comment there on the Facebook group and say, hey, I'm having problems with this, and we'll go ahead and get things sorted out for you. So we really want to, again, serve you as best we can, and have you have a great experience with this course. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Jeff says sounds great. So Bobby, any closing final thoughts?
No, I appreciate it, Tim, and thank you everybody for listening. If you don't mind, just even anytime you're willing to share these resources and tell people about our channel, it all helps so much. And so we genuinely, from the bottom of our heart, thank you for just investing with us. I know that there's lots of other places where you could spend your time. And so it means a lot to you come and hang out with us for this past 45 minutes. And please do be praying for us that in our ministry that we could make a difference, that we would love the Lord passionately with all of our heart, and that we'd see him do great things through our ministry. We're living in challenging times right now, and we really need a crystal clear vision of what it means to be the church for such a time as this. And we would ask for wisdom that we would know